Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we're going to talk about scoring and field judging elk. We've got elk seasons all across the West about to kick off here. And if you haven't listened to episode 50 and 51 of the J. Scott Outdoors podcast, last summer Craig Steele and I basically went over the methods of field judging and how to score elk. And make sure you go back and listen to those episode 50 and 51. I'm going to kind of try and recap those two episodes and a little bit of a refresher for all you guys that are about to hit the woods and about to get after it on elk season. I know that some of the states have already opened, but the majority of you are going to be headed out here over the next month for the early hunts, for the rutting, the bugling season. And I thought it would be important to touch on some of these things. Before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit. There's something that's kind of bothering me. And this whole thing with Josh and Sarah Bomar. And I might as well try and recap for any of you out there that don't know what's going on. And I'll do the best I can to recap it and then kind of give my opinion, but it's really troubling and bothering me. So I guess back in the spring, there's a guy named Josh and Sarah Bomar, and apparently Sarah is a Under Armour athlete, and she does not get paid, from what I understand, by Under Armour, but she gets free gear from Under Armour, and I believe Josh is probably an extension of that. I don't know if there's any formal contract. It's none of my business. But to be honest with you, if you've been following over the last year or two, the Bomars have been a big proponent of Under Armour and have really supported Under Armour. And apparently Under Armour has done their part to support them with gear. And from the best I can tell, Josh... I'm betting these Josh and Sarah Bomars are probably in their late 20s, maybe early 30s, just a complete guess. I didn't really know much about either one of them, other than I've seen them on Instagram a few times here and there. I haven't been following them. They're just I believe they're from the Midwest, and but they're hunters, so I support them. So here's what happens. Josh, I guess, is if you look on his Instagram, he's a big, strong, tall, tough-looking guy, and his wife, Sarah, is a gal that's really into fitness and good-looking gal, and actually produces some really good content as far as working out and quality exercises and diet and fitness, and provides good valuable content out there for people that are into that kind of thing. So Josh trains with a spear, and he checks. He's going to go, I believe, in Alberta in Canada, and he's going to go hunt, and he's going to use a spear. And from what I actually understood is he was maybe an NCAA javelin participant. And so, big, strong, strapping young lad that, decides he's going to try and hunt with a spear. And that brings up kind of the first point, and you might, you know where this is probably going, but he's going to bear hunt with a spear. So he's obviously going to have to be pretty close. I don't know whether he was going to try and do it from a tree stand or do it spot and stalk, or really what his style was, maybe sit bait. I'm not sure what the plan was. But apparently he had a bear, I want to say at 16 steps. And there's a video out there. I haven't even watched the video, to be honest with you. So I'm just kind of regurgitating some of this stuff that I've heard. A bear comes in, he throws the spear, and the bear runs off with the spear, runs about 60 yards into the thick brush there in Canada. It was in the evening. He decided not to go in and pursue the bear. Apparently there's a video, and he goes in the next morning, like all of us hunters do. If you're not sure about the hit, or if it's getting dark, and especially with the bear, you You're probably not going to chase it in the brush if you don't know how good the hit is. So they go in and find the bear the next day, and it had only gone about 60 yards. It was a clean, ethical kill. They skinned the bear, got the bear meat. Everything was fine. And from what I understand, everything's hunky-dory. His wife, I believe, Sarah, videoed the hunt. And here in the last, let's say, couple weeks, like I said, I don't know all the details. I'm sure you could Google it and find out a lot more. The video becomes prevalent in the mainstream media. A guy named Ricky Gervais, who I don't even know who that is, gets a hold of it. I guess he's an anti-hunter. All of a sudden starts throwing it around and rallies a bunch of anti-hunters against the Bomars and approaches Under Armour, and there's some 4,000 name petition or something that goes around, and Under Armour decides that they are going to pull their relationship with the Bomars. In other words, lift their sponsorship or gear giving or whatever you want to call it with the Bomars. So obviously hunters rally around the Bomars, and there's a big thing going on Instagram that says hashtag stand with the Bomars. Well, I've got an issue with this because I see the hunt as being perfectly legal, and I heard that it was perfectly legal. I heard that he checked with the officials before he did the hunt, before he speared the bear. He checked with the outfitter, and it was a perfectly legal, perfectly humane hunt and kill. And here's where my rub is. You've got a company like Under Armour, and to be fair to this, I listen to Cameron Hanes. I'm a big fan of Cameron Hanes. I've never met Cameron Hanes, but I'm a big fan. I think he does a lot of great things for hunting, and I heard him on his podcast with Joe Rogan, and they were talking about these issues, and they made a lot of great points. But where I'm at is, in my mind, it doesn't matter what method of hunting or weapon that you use to hunt. If it's legal, then there should be no problem, and a company that has a branch that's, Under Armour Hunt or hunting, and who are they to decide a method of take that should be, in their minds, ethical or not ethical? If it's legal by the standards of that country or that state, then in my mind, a company that makes money off of hunting shouldn't penalize someone that does a perfectly legal hunt. I want to say that, in my opinion, I believe that God gave us dominion over the animals. It says clearly in the Bible, God gave us dominion over the animals. I believe that God, the creator of all things, created those animals for us to enjoy, for us to eat, and for us to treat ethically. I think we have a moral obligation to do our best to do an ethical, quick, clean kill. If you look at Genesis 27:3, it says, "Now take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go to the field and hunt game for me." That's the English Standard Version. If you take the King James Bible, "Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver and thy bow, and go out to the field and take me some venison." So I come from a standpoint that hunting is a God-given right. And with that God-given right, you take Genesis 1:26, the first book of the Bible, and it says, "Then God said, let us make mankind in our own image, in our own likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So I come from a standpoint that God has given us humans the right to bear dominion over these animals. So where I have the problem is when a company such as Under Armour, who claims that they support hunting, and I actually have friends that are sponsored by Under Armour, and they've done a great job with their marketing campaign, but then all of a sudden, some anti-hunters get upset over someone that uses a spear to kill something. They put pressure on the company, and what does the company do at the first sign of adversity? They drop the hunter, and they take the side of the anti-hunter. And on that podcast of Cameron's, and all respect to Cameron and Joe, they're saying they kind of sugarcoated and said that there was a difference, that hunting with a spear is different than hunting with a bow and arrow. Well, I don't agree. I don't care if you're throwing a rock, if you're sneaking up and stabbing them with a knife, you're flinging an arrow. What is the difference between flinging an arrow and throwing a spear? It's a projectile that you're causing to move with a sharp object on the end of it to kill an animal. Now, they did make the point that maybe not everybody should have the right to use a spear because they're not big and strong like Josh Bomar. That may be the case. Maybe I can't throw a spear as hard as Josh could, so maybe I can't carry that level of lethalness. I understand that. But you could also argue that there's some people that, and they made this argument, that, maybe even shouldn't be shooting a bow at animals. Well, I agree that there's probably some people that should either A, practice more, or, not shoot as far as they do. But I've got a problem when a company that's making millions, if not billions of dollars, saying that they support hunters, and because they don't like the method of take, they decide that they're going to can this athlete. I don't like it one bit. I just thought I would weigh in on that, and I've had a lot of people call me. Now people say, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't sit bait anyway for bears or any animals. Well, that's not really for me to decide or you to decide. I think hunters should support other hunters even though they don't agree with maybe their method of take. And I've got a problem with this. And quite honestly, I know there's a lot of hunters out there that are feeling kind of the same way. I feel a little bit somewhat betrayed. And I understand some of these athletes, Cameron being one of them, is in a real tough situation because one of his best friends is one of the majority owners of Under Armour. I understand that. But that shouldn't affect his decision. Just because you're friends, you can disagree with their ideology but still be friends. But I think this is a blatant slap in the face to hunters just because we don't agree with their method of take, and that maybe I haven't done targeted something with a spear. That doesn't mean that it's not okay for someone else. It was perfectly legal. Who am I to judge someone else's method of take? Anyway, I'm curious to see what you guys think about it. You can send me an email at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. You can send me a Facebook message. You can put a message on my Instagram. And I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just talking about the way I feel about the situation. I'm curious to hear what you guys think.